Hey guys, this is Sean from Korea. Today I'm going to do an analysis of ownership structure of IONQ, which I think is one of the most important information that we have. So to start off, let's see how IONQ's ownership structure is formed. It's from the S1 report that IONQ has submitted to SEC. And here we can see that 5% and greater shareholders, which is basically the big shareholders, consists of NEA, New Enterprise Associates, and GV, Google Ventures, and DMI sponsors. From here, we could see that these two entities are the most important big shareholders, which has more than 26%. And compared to that, executive officers and directors of IonQ, CEO Peter Chapman and co-founders Jung-Sang Kim and Christopher Monroe has about 2% and 4%. So in total, the insiders of IonQ only has about 16% compared to the big investors, 26%. So our questions comes into our mind that why does IonQ executive officers and directors only have 16% of all the shares? Isn't that a risk to ownership defending? Besides that, we could see other information from the filings. Pipe investors such as Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which is run by Bill Gates, 2.5 million. And also we could see MSD Partners here, about 1.5 million. And then Hyundai Motor Company and Kia Corporation, which is a major car manufacturing company in Korea. It's about 1 million shares. MSD, and so on. And we could also see that Amazon has also invested in IonQ of about 8 million shares. And in total, Pipe Investors has about 105 million shares, which is more than 50% of all the shares that has been issued. So to interpret this in a positive way, it is hard to see pharmaceutical companies' management taking more than 50% of the shares. And also major research personnel which can produce core patents, which those people who can actually produce new medicines often owns less than 10% of all the shares. And the reason why I mentioned this first is that IonQ and pharmaceutical company has similarity in a way that few important human resource assets are the key of the business success. So these two companies are very similar in terms of ownership structure. So if there is an unwanted or hostile M&A, VIPs, which mentioning to major research personnel, might leave the firm, so there is no meaning in buying out the company. So besides the current 5% shareholders, even if hostile M&A is possible, it is unlikely to take place. So which that means that Google buying 11% share of IonQ was agreed in advance with IonQ. So if IonQ is successful in making commercial quantum computers in the future, Google is the best candidate for buying out the ownership of IonQ. I think that's what the S1 filing is telling us. So Jung-Sang Kim's share is about 4% and Chris Monroe has about 3.7. This in total is about 8%. I first thought this was very small portion of all the shares, but it's not small at all. So here is the part from the S1 filing that IonQ specifically mentions that their human resource is the most valuable asset and the company is highly dependent on it. So to read it out, we are highly dependent on our co-founders and our ability to attract and retain senior management and other key employees, such as quantum physicists and other key technical employees, which is critical to our success. If we fail to retain talented, highly qualified senior management and engineers and other key employees, such failure could negatively impact our business. So we could see the proof from the S1 filing. And I found some similar companies in pharmaceutical area, and I'm sorry that I brought some Korean companies because I couldn't find any similar American-based company easily. So I'll just use the ones from my Korean version video. So this company is Celltrion. Maybe some of you have already heard of it. It's very big and prominent pharmaceutical company in Korea, and this says the biggest shareholders or the owners only has 22% of all the shares. So for IONQ, it had about 16%, right? So this is very close to each other. And this is another very famous firm in Korea in pharmaceutical area. And the biggest shareholder and the owner only has 16%, and the next one only has 23%. So IonQ having 16% of all the shares of the IonQ managements and insiders is not a big problem in the similar industry or similar companies. So that was the positive analysis, but for negative analysis, let's see how it goes. So for the lockup agreement, the first entity, the sponsor and the board of directors of DMY, they have about 7.5 million shares, which consists about 7.5% of all the shares issued. So these shares will be released at earlier of the following conditions. First one is 365 days after the merger, which will be September 30th of 2022. And the second condition is the day after the date on which the closing price of common IonQ stock equals or exceeds $12 per share for any 20 trading days within any 30 trading day period commencing at least 150 days after the closing date. So if IonQ's stock price keeps over $12 after 6 months, this can be the releasement of the 7.5 million shares. And for the second entity, members of the IonQ's management, which is about 82 million shares and 43% of all the shares issued, they also have two conditions, releasement conditions, 1 year after the merger and the similar condition from the above, but with 180 days after the closing date. So we could see that the second entity has a harder releasement condition than the first one. And the last entity we have is certain current shareholders of IonQ, which from the SEC filing I could find this means Google Ventures and NEA. And they own 52 million shares, which is about 26% of all the shares. And they have very easy releasement condition, which is 180 days after the merger. So that would be March 29th. So we could see that the releasement conditions difficulty is varied among these three entities. So the easiest one is this, and second is the sponsor and board of directors of DMI, and the last one would be the members of IonQ's management. So we can wonder why they put a difference in the lockup releasement difficulty. So big holders first, and then sponsor directors of DMI, and then IonQ's management. Why? From my analysis, big investors can escape first and easy if IonQ does not succeed or do not show significant progress. If this assumption is right, there was an interview with Jung Sang Kim, which is a co-founder of IonQ, with Korean Quantum Information Research Support Center, which was about 90 minutes long, and I saw all the interview and remember him saying that we have about 5 years to develop this quantum computer technology, and if we fail, he might have to invest in other next generation technology. So him mentioning 5 years might be the key to IonQ's timeline. So they have to be successful in 5 years. That's what I thought at the first place. But after looking at the lockup agreement, IonQ might have to show good progress until late March of 2022, because Google and IonQ might leave the company if IonQ do not show any significant progress by then. So 5 years might be changed to 6 months until March of 2022. So the conclusion is that IonQ's management's small shares, which is about 16%, do not mean immediate risk from the hostile or unwanted M&A, because IonQ heavily depends on the core human resource. However, the lockup agreement specifically gave the easiest exit conditions to Google Ventures and NEA, which invested the most. So, by looking at the releasement conditions, not according to Jung Sang Kim's interview, he mentioned 5 years, but from the lockup agreement, we could see that they only have 6 months to show significant progress. So that might be a few results that I got from the analysis of lockup agreement. And this is a logo of my SNS chat room, which in Korea, KakaoTalk is the most important and very popular SNS chat in Korea. And one of my members, he created this for me. It's very similar to the Squid Game, very famous Korean drama in Netflix. And we currently have about 550 shareholders in my room, which we do conversation about IonQ stock price and quantum computer developments or other technologies and other stocks as well. And we accumulatively have about 1 million shares now. So I asked a few questions to CFO and he responded as well. So I think it's really productive community that I have there. So I plan to expand that on the Reddit as well. So I made a subreddit named IonQ stock price, IonQ stock. So if you're interested, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and also visit IonQ stock subreddit. So that concludes my presentation for today. So we have talked about IonQ's core info, which is ownership structure analysis. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, leave like and comments. Thank you guys. Bye.